When you're trapped within a world of violence and murder, of gunshots and explosions, of train conductors and phantom shovels, things become just a little bit complicated when you attempt to go against the grain. You see, stories are slowly beginning to spread across the West. Stories of a single man and his horse on a mission like none you ever seen. Stories of the pair making their way through mountains of men without taking a single life. Some claim they've actually had encounters with the mystery duo, going as far to say that the horse is the man's protector, that he can break a man's spine with his thoughts. But I don't know about all that. People make up fantasy stories like this all the time. I mean, last I heard somebody was running around, swearing on their life that he saw him roaming around the south of Valentine, or something like that. Well, I sure as hell don't believe it, but can't say it wouldn't be nice to have someone to watch over us hard-working folk every now and again. Things ain't been this bad in a long while.
Frank and Arthur have had some time to settle into their new surroundings. After the stresses that came with not only getting out of those treacherous mountains alive, but also escaping from that V-Bucks robbery without wiping anyone off the face of the planet, our boys definitely needed some time to rest before setting off to do more good. Feeling refreshed and feeling rejuvenated, it was time to hit the tracks and begin the next journey. But there was a small bit of business that needed to be carried out first. See, the boys were about to step into some new and uncharted territory. Danger down every road and evil at every turn. If Arthur and Frank really were going to successfully bless these new lands with the goodness of their souls, they needed to look the part. And so, the quest for Arthur's evolution begins. Last episode, I asked you all to send me some suggestions for what Arthur should look like for the rest of the series. Now I find this detail to be very important because if Arthur's going to be running around as everybody's holy savior until the end of time, he can't be getting around in the same drip he was born in, okay? I mean, this is character development. The only kind of guideline I set for these suggestions was that Arthur's outfit should suit the theme of the series. He shouldn't look like he's gonna follow you home and steal your rock collection, okay? Now, there were a ton of great suggestions, a ton of them. So many that they would need their own video if I was to show them all off individually. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you all so much for getting involved with that. It was really cool seeing all of your suggestions, but there was one suggestion that seemed to climb above the rest. A suggestion that was so highly requested by so many people that it'd be a crime for me not to pick it. The next step in human evolution. Arthur wearing this outfit would radiate so much power that the sun would just pack up and piss off to another solar system. Unstoppable, stylish, look at that beard. So, as I said, the idea was requested by, I'd say, the majority of people who left a suggestion, but the actual exact style I'll be basing the outfit and hair off is from Tan Kid on Twitter, who was nice enough to annotate the entire outfit and hair for me so that me and my 3 brain cells could actually put the look together. And you might be thinking, that outfit doesn't look overly complicated to put together at all. I mean, just a shirt, some suspenders, a pair of jeans, that's about as easy as it gets, right? Well, not exactly. First of all, they say crime doesn't pay, but apparently being good doesn't really either, because Arthur and Frank had a combined net worth of $10 and a packet of oatcakes. Definitely not enough to fund the most powerful outfit on the planet. Secondly, the clothing needs to be brought from the general store in Valentine, which can only be accessed after we do this mission with Uncle. So we ride into town, we're forced into buying a cigar, setting us back $1.50, and Arthur, being the hero he is, gets thrown into just a little bit of trouble. An unavoidable fight with a half-naked man inside a hotel room. I swear it isn't what it looks like. Now, of course, the game is trying to force us to knock this guy out, and although a knockout isn't nearly as bad as what a kill is, I still tried my absolute hardest to avoid it. I tried dodging out of the room to maybe lead him outside, but as I suspected, there was an invisible wall in the middle of the doorway. Eventually, I found a way to get past the invisible wall by pushing him out, but the game was very clearly confused when I did this, as my options and control of Arthur was severely limited. I tried pushing him down the hallway, pushing him out the side door, pushing him into Karen, pushing him onto the bed, but nothing worked. There really wasn't much to it. The game just wanted you in a confined area to fight this one guy. And because of the fact that we were still so early into the game, we're still encountering tutorial missions. And although it doesn't explicitly say it, this was definitely one of them. Tutorial missions so far have caused the most unavoidable issues, resulting in the least amount of freedom. Whenever a new element of the gameplay is introduced, Rockstar wants you to complete it one way. Thankfully, this should mean the further we progress, the less one-choice scenarios will be placed in. Anyway, now certain that there was no way to avoid putting this man into a coma, I introduced his skull to the wall and stepped out to finish the mission. Now, for no reason, as we step out, we're suddenly approached by a man who rides over and insults Uncle's weight, and so we begin chasing him in hopes of getting an apology. He ends up getting himself into quite an unfortunate position, but he does eventually apologize, and so we help him up and let him go. With the general store now unlocked, the option for us to purchase clothing is finally available. Now, we are one step closer to unlocking Arthur's true form, but our funds are still looking a little sad. So I decided to visit the local butcher and began selling any of the meats, feathers, and animal fat that I had on me. I was a couple of dollars richer, sure, but a new problem popped into my head while on the way to purchase some clothing. We were going to need health and stamina tonics. A lot of them. We're going to need baked beans, oat cakes, apples, carrots, and canned peaches if we want to survive long enough to make the West good again. So our money-related troubles were now going to run a little deeper than what I originally thought. But back to the task at hand, the Jesus drip. We needed it. I got a white shirt for the great price of $4.50, but couldn't find any of the pants anywhere. And that's when I realized the pants required for this outfit couldn't be found in the shabby mud pit known as Valentine. No, of course not. These were pinstripe pants. How silly of me to assume that something so fancy could be found anywhere other than Sandy Knee, St. Denis, St. Denis, Road Town. And with not a single white pair of pants available in Valentine to use as a substitute, that's exactly where we went. Now, might seem excessive to make a trip halfway across the country for a pair of white pinstripe pants, but if that's really what you think, I'd say you're definitely underestimating the sheer power this outfit is going to radiate once it's complete. Nothing really of note happened on the way to Saint Denis, besides witnessing 2 brutal murders in what looked to be a robbery gone wrong, of course, but I obviously detained the suspects and added their funds to my collection plate before continuing my journey. Now a couple of bucks and a few pocket watches richer. I arrived to Saint Denis, took in a nice deep breath of the disgustingly polluted air, and made my way into the clothing store. I picked up a slick new pair of white pinstripe pants and some cream crossback suspenders before standing outside in the sun for a while so I could marvel at Arthur's new level of holiness. Now don't get me wrong, the look was great. It was amazing. Arthur just about grew angel wings and flew off into the sunset as soon as I slapped a pair of white pants on him and kicked his shoes off, but it still wasn't complete. And unfortunately, it probably wouldn't be complete for a while. I still required a level 7 beard and a level 7 hair length for this outfit to really start changing lives. So, as I rode back in the direction of Valentine, I added hair tonic to the list of future expenses and planned on crying myself to sleep that night while pondering the lack of my financial freedom. After a long and exhausting day of travel, Arthur and Frank decided it was time they went and grabbed a drink at the local saloon. Frank decided last minute it was probably better that he stayed outside due to his ongoing battle with alcoholism, but Arthur was more than ready to turn water to cheap whiskey and forget his own name. Unfortunately, the unexpected breakout of a bar fight interrupted any chance of that, while also frustrating me to the point of no return. I hate missions like this. Tutorial missions are the worst. They are the enemy of this series purely because you are chained to a single solution. This was similar to the previous melee fight in the sense that I managed to push the enemy through an invisible wall. Again, going past this point really limited your control of Arthur since the game obviously doesn't want you past that point at all. All you can really do is spam grab to continue pushing the enemy until you're eventually locked into this animation that brings you all the way back into the saloon. Once this animation starts, there is no way to break from this man's grasp. I tried pushing the enemy out to the horses so that maybe they could kick him and knock him out for me, but after the sheer amount of times that I tried this strategy, I'm pretty sure it's impossible. I pushed him all the way up the stairs and around the balcony. I tried getting him to walk into chairs so much they killed him. I even tried getting the other NPCs who were in combat to hit him for me, but the punches just phased through him like Casper the fucking Ghost just entered the UFC. I don't know why this mission frustrated me so much more than any of the others so far, and I mean any of the others, but it really did. And it was probably due to the fact that deep down, I knew no matter what I tried, I wasn't going to avoid knocking this dude out. It was another tutorial mission. Again, it didn't say that, but the restriction of where you could go and what you could do said it all. So after a few more dead-end strategies that me and my last functioning brain cells desperately scraped together, I just accepted that I would have to knock this guy out. It really was a shame that we had to knock the dude out to continue, but at least we were now past the worst. Right? Wrong. Very, very horribly wrong. This mission was bursting with surprises. Our next objective was to help the gang defeat the brawlers. I thought that now the primary enemy had been defeated, the new enemies wouldn't just phase through me on contact, but I was also wrong about that. I tried breaking up the fight by standing in between them, which was completely ineffective, so I moved on to spamming triangle to grab one of the enemies instead of punching them, but no. Clearly the game just wanted me to take someone's head off their shoulders like I was more Aaron Black than Arthur Morgan, but 2 knockouts in a row, I was really looking to avoid that. My absolute last-ditch attempt to avoid another knockout here was to run up the stairs and drop down onto the enemies. Hopefully not knocking them out, but hopefully doing enough damage to disengage them from combat with the boys. And long story short, you can't jump over the balcony. So I approached one of the enemies, hoped that a little jab wouldn't put him out cold, but was met with a forced animation that had him snoozing instantly. So that's 2 knockouts from the same mission already, but don't worry. There was still more surprises to come, guys. Russell from Bully's ancestor makes an appearance. He comes stomping down the stairs. I get flogged with a chair. I'm forced into knocking yet another enemy out, and before I know it, I'm being thrown through a fucking window. They say there's a low point in every hero's story, and for Western Jesus, I'd say that this is definitely one of those low points. You cannot get out of fighting the absolute behemoth that wants to tear you in two here, but at least you can avoid beating his face to a pulp once the fight's over. All the characters seem to react as if you still did, but considering I didn't lay another finger on him once he was on the ground, I'd say we can at least consider that not a knockout. So that's a plus, I suppose, but counting the enemy in the hotel room that we'd just had to KO before, we were now 4 knockouts deep. 4. That is the most knockouts in one sitting we've ever encountered so far. And it was obvious that this really did cut Arthur quite deep. His mission is to do good. It's his life goal. When things really begin to challenge that goal, it's understandable to want to give up on it. It's understandable for Arthur and Frank to want to abandon their duties completely when times get tough. But they don't. They push forward. They search tirelessly for more ways to spread good. These failures only motivate them even more because they know that the West needs saving. And they know that they're the only duo who can save it. So Frank and Arthur return to the camp to see if anyone can point them in the direction of some good that needs doing. They figure the camp's environmental activist Kieran, who has tied himself to this tree in protest of deforestation, would be a good place to start. He begins informing Arthur and Frank about a rumor he heard when they first rode into the Heartlands. Apparently, not too long ago, there was a man practicing magic in the Valentine saloon. He claimed to have found a book of spells that granted him incredible abilities, but when he recited a spell that was supposed to make him fly, he was instead transformed into an inanimate object. That inanimate object being a double-barrel shotgun. Everyone in the saloon was really too drunk to notice, and so the man was left there, sitting on a table until an O'Driscoll stole him on his way out and brought him back to his camp. Now, the inanimate magician is being held captive with no way to escape. And due to the fact that double-barrel shotguns do not have legs, simply running away was not an option. Now, of course, our boys jumped at the chance to carry out a rescue mission. After the disappointment of the last few missions, this was their chance to get back up, dust themselves off, and do some good. Frank stayed back to keep a lookout while Arthur, Kieran, John, and Bill moved forward to get a better look of the camp. Kieran went on to say that the magician was apparently being held inside a cabin at the opposite end of the camp, and as Arthur surveyed the area, noticing the huge number of O'Driscolls that were guarding it, he prepared himself for a serious challenge.
What are we doing about the pisser, Morgan?
After sending Bill to take care of the first enemy, it was now time to move forward with the next phase of the plan. While trying to remain stealthy, Bill stands on a twig that snaps quite loudly, alerting every O'Driscoll in the area. And so the campsite is turned into a war zone. I lassoed the first two enemies, leaving John and Bill to take care of them before darting into the trees in search of cover. Bullets flew and O'Driscolls fell, but none died at the hands of Arthur as he swiftly immobilized any of his opponents. Bill began taking heavy fire, and so I sprinted into a swarm of enemies to draw their attention to me. John rushed in to assist, and before long, we'd made a considerable dent in the number of O'Driscolls. John, Bill, and Arthur moved side by side, pushing through the remaining enemies in an unbreakable unity. They were simply no match for Arthur's lasso, and they definitely weren't any match for John's boot. The final group of O'Driscolls hung on for a while, but eventually they realized it was no use. This was a rescue mission they clearly weren't getting in the way of, and so they turned around and hightailed it into the trees. With the captive magician just behind the next door, the rescue mission had gone flawlessly. I mean, Arthur came pretty close to having his brain matter scattered across the front porch for a second there, but besides that, it was flawless. 0 knockouts, and most importantly, 0 kills. The boys were back on track, no longer disheartened by the results of the last few missions and ready to continue their journey. But first, it was time to rescue the magician they came for. Now, that magician had been stuck above that chimney without a bath for God only knows how long, so we did him the extra courtesy of giving him a clean, and he rewarded us with a total of $600, leaving a portion to the gang and $100 to us. The money would obviously go towards hair tonics, miracle elixirs, and canned peaches to keep our boys running at their best, but considering that there was definitely no money being spent on weapons, we had more than enough to spare for the essentials. With the magician rescued and Arthur's hair finally beginning to grow, everything felt right again. The knockout in the hotel room, the 3 knockouts in the saloon, and the fight with Tommy. The harsh disappointment of those encounters felt like they could now be washed away. But when you're on a mission to change the entire course of the world that surrounds you, to choose good over evil when evil seems so tempting, you may never get a day of rest. There will always be good that needs doing. And so no matter how good things may seem, and no matter how calm things may appear, Frank and Arthur's job will never be done. And when disaster inevitably strikes, Frank and Arthur will need to make some serious sacrifices.
They got Micah! Dutch! Arthur!
What's going on?
They got Micah. He's been arrested for murder.
Hello and welcome to the After Outro Show. I'm your host, Australian man with a blocked nose, and on today's After Outro Show, I have a couple of guests who I'd like you to meet. Special guests who have gone above and beyond to support me and my content. Allow me to introduce Josh GB, Jordan Merrill, and Sam Wellington. Please give them a round of applause. They are now my sons. I will raise them as my own. I'll make sure to feed them 3 times daily, play catch with them in the yard, and might take them to the park every now and again, and get some ice cream together. Father and son stuff. It'll be good. I'm looking forward to it, honestly. Can't go wrong with a park and some ice cream, I always say. So me and me boys, killing the game.